Have you ever felt that something you thought was healthy, like eggs, might not be as good for you as you thought? Honestly, that's a pretty uncomfortable feeling, isn't it? You've heard about the benefits of eggs, but then you hear some conflicting viewpoints, and you start to wonder, is eating eggs really good for me? You're not alone. Many people, especially as they get older, start to ask themselves questions about what they're eating. After all, maintaining a healthy diet is essential for living a healthy life. Today, we're going to look at a topic that you've probably thought about: the mistakes that can turn eggs, a food most of us consider healthy, into a real health hazard. You might be surprised to learn that the way you cook, store, and even eat eggs can affect your health in ways you hadn't thought about. But don't worry, we'll walk through it step by step. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to avoid these mistakes and make the most of the benefits from this food. Let's start with the first mistake: eating eggs with too much cholesterol. You've probably heard the saying, you shouldn't eat too many eggs because they contain a lot of cholesterol. This has been a concern for decades, especially among older adults. The truth is, eggs do contain cholesterol, but recent studies have shown that for most people, eating eggs doesn't raise cholesterol levels in the blood the way we once thought. In fact, eggs can be part of a healthy diet when eaten in moderation. However, here's where the mistake happens. If you combine eggs with too many cholesterol-rich or fatty foods, you might be putting yourself at risk. Imagine you're making a scrambled egg sandwich with bacon and cheese. 1 or 2 eggs isn't the problem, but when you combine them with all the fat and cholesterol from bacon and cheese, your meal could increase your risk of heart disease. If you're trying to lower cholesterol, it's important to think about what you're eating with the eggs, not just the eggs themselves. If you're eating too many deep-fried foods or cooking eggs with too much butter or oil, that's the issue. Instead, you could pair eggs with healthier foods. For example, a little bit of avocado or some leafy greens. Not only does this help balance the meal, but it also provides healthy fats that help lower bad cholesterol. Plus, you get a wonderful amount of fiber, which is so important for digestion, especially as we age. Another common mistake many people make is cooking eggs at too high a temperature. When eggs are cooked at high heat, like when you fry them with oil or butter at high temperatures, the proteins in the egg whites start to break down and form compounds that can increase inflammation in the body. This can be a particular issue if you already have joint problems, as inflammation can intensify pain and discomfort. Instead, you should cook eggs at a lower temperature. For example, gently scrambling eggs over medium or low heat will help preserve the nutrients in the eggs and reduce the risk of creating harmful compounds. You can also boil or steam eggs if you want to avoid adding any extra fat. What about storing eggs? This may seem obvious, but if eggs are not stored properly, you could face some serious health risks, especially for older adults. When eggs are not stored correctly, bacteria can develop, causing food poisoning or even more serious conditions like salmonella. You've probably seen warnings about storing eggs in the refrigerator, but there's more to it than that. Do you know how long eggs can be stored in the fridge? You'll be surprised to learn that many people don't check the expiration date and just use eggs until the shell cracks. Eggs should always be stored in the fridge to ensure they're safe to eat. But it's not just the temperature in the fridge that matters. You also need to pay attention to how long the eggs have been in there. The general rule is that eggs are good for about 3 to 5 weeks from the purchase date if stored properly. To check if eggs are still fresh, you can do a simple water test. Place the egg in a bowl of water. If the egg sinks to the bottom and lays flat, it's still good. If the egg stands upright or floats, it's time to toss it out. Now that we've covered some basic points, limiting cholesterol intake when eating eggs, cooking eggs at a safe temperature, and properly storing eggs, let's take a moment to reflect on how your diet affects your health, especially as you age. Everything needs balance. Eggs themselves are not harmful, but when they become part of an imbalanced meal or are cooked incorrectly, that's where the problem lies. Up to now, we've talked about making some small changes in how you prepare eggs, but it's just as important to look at your overall diet. When I was younger, eggs were considered a super healthy food for breakfast. They're quick, easy to make, and packed with protein. But as we age, we need to think more carefully about the nutritional value of everything we eat, including eggs. Eggs can be part of a balanced diet, helping to boost energy, maintain healthy muscles, and support brain function. But remember, it's those small habits that can gradually impact your health. We've just begun this journey, and I'm really excited to continue sharing tips with you on how to enjoy eggs the right way. Now, we've discussed the basic mistakes related to eggs, like eating them with too much cholesterol, cooking them at too high a temperature, and not storing them properly. But there are still other mistakes that many people, especially older adults, often make without realizing it. Let's dive into those further. Another mistake I want you to be aware of is using expired eggs. Sure, you've probably heard the advice. If the eggshell isn't cracked, they're still good to eat. However, that's not always true. Old eggs not only lose their nutritional value, but can also harbor harmful bacteria, especially if they've been stored too long in the fridge. For older adults, the immune system isn't as strong as it once was, and expired eggs can easily lead to digestive issues or food poisoning. A famous story in the US involves a woman named Mary from Texas. She ate an egg she thought was still fresh, even though it had been in the fridge for over a month. As a result, she suffered food poisoning, had to be hospitalized, and underwent treatment for weeks. Doctors explained that her immune system wasn't as strong as before, and the expired egg was the source of the salmonella bacteria, making her condition serious. Therefore, checking expiration dates and storing eggs properly is crucial, especially as we get older. This is really important because eating expired eggs can lead to serious consequences. One of the most common illnesses from eating old eggs is salmonella, a bacteria that can cause diarrhea, fever, and stomach pain. Especially for those with weakened immune systems, like the elderly, this condition can be more severe and requires prompt treatment. Be sure to check the expiration date on the packaging before eating, and remember to use the water test to check for freshness. If eggs show any signs of being off, like a cracked shell or unpleasant odor, don't hesitate to throw them away. So what about cooking eggs without losing the nutrients they contain? Another big mistake is overcooking eggs. When eggs are cooked too long, especially when you fry or boil them for too long, the essential nutrients in the eggs can be destroyed. Healthy fats in the yolk and vitamins like vitamin D and B12 are significantly reduced when eggs are cooked at high temperatures for too long. A recent survey in the US showed that many families don't realize that frying eggs at too high a temperature reduces their nutritional value. Linda from California shared that she used to enjoy crispy fried eggs with lots of oil, but after consulting a nutritionist, she switched to cooking eggs at a moderate temperature, and she noticed a marked improvement in her health, especially regarding her energy levels and body flexibility. By lowering the temperature when cooking eggs, Linda not only preserved the nutrients, but also reduced unnecessary calories from the excess oil. The reason is that eggs, especially the yolks, contain a lot of healthy fats and fat-soluble vitamins such as vitamins A and D. If you cook eggs too much, you won't get all the nutritional benefits that eggs offer. A typical example is when you fry eggs for too long. The fats in the yolk can oxidize, reducing your body's ability to absorb nutrients. A simple tip to avoid this is to cook eggs at a moderate temperature and avoid frying or cooking them for too long. If you're boiling eggs, cooking them for about 6 to 8 minutes to keep the yolk soft is ideal. Additionally, Another common mistake is cooking eggs with too much oil or butter. Oil and butter can make eggs too greasy, increasing the calorie count of your meal. Using too much oil or butter not only raises the risk of weight gain but can also lead to heart problems if eaten too frequently. Instead of using oil or butter, try cooking eggs by steaming, boiling, or baking them without adding any extra fat. If you want your eggs to be creamy, a little olive oil or cashew butter can be a better choice, as they contain healthy fats and won't harm your health. Mr. Robert, a resident of Florida, used to fry eggs with a lot of butter and oil. However, after he developed high blood pressure and high cholesterol, he began to change his cooking habits. Mr. Robert switched to cooking eggs by steaming or boiling them without using any oil or fat. After a few months, he noticed that his blood pressure and cholesterol had decreased, and he felt much healthier. This proves that reducing fat when cooking eggs can bring significant benefits to heart health. Finally, we cannot forget another important issue when it comes to eggs: overusing them in your daily diet. While eggs are an excellent source of protein, if you eat too many eggs every day, you may face nutritional imbalance. Eggs are rich in protein and fat, but they lack some essential vitamins and minerals that the body needs. If you eat too many eggs without combining them with other foods, you could be missing out on important nutrients like fiber, vitamin C, and other essential minerals. Mrs. Doris from New York used to eat 3 eggs every morning without combining them with any other foods. After a while, she felt that her health was not as good as before, and she even started showing signs of constipation and fatigue. When she consulted a nutritionist, the doctor advised her to eat eggs in combination with vegetables and fruits to supplement the nutrients she was missing. After changing her eating habits, Mrs. Doris noticed a significant improvement in her health, feeling more energized, and her body became more flexible. Therefore, eggs should be eaten as part of a diverse diet. Combine eggs with leafy greens, fruits, and whole grains to ensure your body gets all the necessary nutrients. Especially for older adults, eating a balanced diet helps maintain heart health, digestive function, and provides enough energy for daily activities. Thus, we've explored quite a few mistakes you might unknowingly make when eating eggs. However, don't worry, these mistakes can easily be corrected. In fact, with just a few simple adjustments to how you eat and cook eggs, you'll be able to enjoy all the benefits eggs offer without the health risks. Eggs can be a great part of your diet, as long as you know how to use them wisely and safely. Remember, health doesn't just come from the foods you choose, but also from how you prepare and eat them. When you eat mindfully and with the right knowledge, you'll easily maintain a healthy and active life, regardless of age. Continue to join me in the next videos to explore more tips to help you live healthier and happier every day.